Hi, my name's Phil. I like to come out politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Trump's government is increasing pressure on Brazil to halt the criminal case against former President Bolsonaro after he attempted insurrection after losing the election. However, Trump's efforts seem to be backfiring and have just increased support for the current Brazilian government. But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So Trump is continuing to provide the entertainment for this summer. He's just been caught trying to fiddle the Epstein files, but that may have to wait. But in terms of this, Trump is clearly not content with destroying an already questionable justice system in America, but wants to subvert it in Brazil to help get his mate Jair Bolsonaro off. Not quite sure why Trump would object to a criminal case against a former president who attempted insurrection, but you know, there it is. Trump has attempted to pressure Brazil with 50% tariffs from next month, which he openly claims is partly down to the prosecution of Bolsonaro. And now Marco Rubio has announced that he's stripped US visas from most of the Brazilian Supreme Court. He excluded judges that were appointed by Bolsonaro. But if Trump was hoping this would help his friend avoid justice, he may have miscalculated a little. The current president, Lula, described the tariff announcement as blackmail, and public opinion turned on it as well. There will be new presidential elections next year, and Lula is up against Freitas, who has served in Bolsonaro's government in the past. I see Lula's lead has shot up over Freitas since Trump's announcement, in the second round from being behind to being ahead. Mind you, I will point out that the polls are a little bit all over the place in Brazil right now, but a spike in polling approval for the current government at the same time as major US aggression stands a good chance of being linked. There was a protest in Sao Paulo as well against Trump. And since Rubio's announcement, the Supreme Court in Brazil, has said, look, we're not backing down, mate. Bolsonaro's trial is expected to come to a conclusion this summer. Faces up to 43 years in prison, I gather. And it would appear that even right-wing news outlets are not approving of Trump's interference here. Strategically careless as well. The reality is Trump can't do very much to interfere in this case. I'm sure his ego can't take the fact that even as US president, he can't actually do what he likes. But attempting to bully a country almost always triggers a rally round the flag response. One reason the EU Commission didn't weigh in on Brexit ahead of the referendum was because they didn't want to seem like the foreigners telling a country what they should do, because that could trigger that same rally round the flag response. It didn't stop the result, but the reasoning was sound enough. When a country faces a common threat, people do tend to support the government in resisting it. We saw the almost baffling level of support the public gave Boris Johnson during COVID, despite his very obvious continued failures. But people just naturally feel you need to pull together at times like that, and you have to pull together around the government. So Trump attacking literally the entire country of Brazil through ridiculous tariffs, plus their sense of sovereignty with attacks on their most senior judges, could almost be designed to both increase support for the current government and increase their resolve that Bolsonaro should face justice. You know, people in Brazil know what Bolsonaro did, just like people in America know what Trump did in January 2021. The only difference is that Brazil didn't mess about with their traitor facing trial. You know, he's not getting ready for a comeback. The Guardian quoted a political journalist in Brazil suggesting that Trump made a mistake, not necessarily in trying to put pressure on it, but the scale of the attack, that Bolsonaro would have wanted a modest penalty in order to say, look, is this pain really worth your revenge against me? But because of the severity of Trump's ham-fisted actions, it tipped the scales the other way. It's provoked anger amongst the public. It appears that one of Bolsonaro's sons actually had tried to appeal to Trump on social media to suspend the tariffs and use targeted sanctions, although he later deleted the post. But a sign that Bolsonaro's team recognised that Trump's intervention was just making things worse for them. Another sign that Trump is not strategically minded. He's exactly how he appears. He's brash. He thinks he can just bully his way to whatever he wants. He's a buffoon. So if he decides to launch an attack, then the bigger the better in his mind. It's not just that Brazilians oppose Trump on this and certainly don't want the government to interfere in the prosecution, but it seems many are blaming Bolsonaro and his people for being behind it. So it's not even anger at Trump. They're actually blaming Bolsonaro for these tariffs now. You know, this is the problem. Like all far-right populists, Bolsonaro claims to be acting out of patriotism, but now he's literally looking like he wanted the president of a foreign power to punish his people just to help him evade justice. Could there be anything less patriotic than that? But should we be surprised that Bolsonaro has been burned by Trump? The history of Trump's political career is one of burned and battered relationships along the way. The highest profile falling out during the second term so far is Elon Musk, of course, but there were plenty of people who were close to Trump in his first term, and little good it did them. You know, there comes a point where you have to ask, is the one thing worse than having Trump as your enemy, having him as your friend? And although I'm not seriously suggesting senior judges would ever do this, would be top banter. If the court, so if it convicts Bolsonaro, innocent until proven guilty, but let's say he's convicted, right? And the court sentences him to a lengthy spell in prison and then adds another 5 years on top for eliciting aid from a foreign power. Basically, not only convicting Trump's mate, but letting it be known that his sentence is now longer because of Trump. That would be top trolling. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.